Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of ReelPR with me, Fiona Scott. I hope you're having a good day, a good week, a good month. Today I'm joined by my bestie, but she's my bestie I met through business and now she's my bestie. Bestie and business is pretty interchangeable, but we're going to get into it straight away. We're going to talk PR, friendship and anything we like really. So let's get into it.
Hello and thank you. I'm Lis McDermott, Fiona's bestie.
You're not just my bestie, you're other things, aren't you? Tell people what you're up to.
I was thinking about this morning, I'm actually a novelist. I used to say I'm an author, but I'm going to say I'm a novelist, having now written 3.
Yep.
I'm working on my 4th. I also write poetry, but also I mentor other people to help them get their words out of their head onto paper.
And we'll be upfront about it. You've mentored me through my first book and my second book, because otherwise it's not that I can't write, it's that I'd never have got it done, Liz, would I?
It's certainly not that you can't write. It's quite bizarre because you are a writer and I found it quite weird in a way. But yes, it works really well because I record you, I write up your notes and then you tweak it so it's your own wording and it works okay.
Yeah, it's worked really well, and otherwise I would still have not got that first book out. And for those of you who don't know, my first book is called The Hard Yard. You can look it up in all the usual places. We've got another book coming later this year too, which Liz is helping me with. But let's go back, Liz. What is your recollection of how we first met?
I think the very first time I saw you, you were mums in something.
Yeah, originally my company was called Mums in Media.
That's it, Mums in Media. And I saw you and I made a terrible assumption of I'm not going to have anything in common with her because if it's all about mums, because I'm not a mum, chose not to be a mum. And I was thinking, okay. And also you were quite feisty and I was thinking, she's not going to she obviously doesn't suffer fools madly and I'm a bit of a twit at times. So I thought, I'm not sure that we're going to get on. How wrong I was. Because I haven't had many girlfriends. I've had friends, but I've never had a real bestie for most of my long life.
No, and I'm thinking about, we've talked about this many times, but equally that's true for me. I've had very few really close female friends, probably half a dozen throughout my life, because quite often I find girls quite hard to get on with. I find men easier to get on with.
Me too. I've still got male friends that I've known from college, 50-year friendships with men who I've kept in touch with, plus they're married or, whatever. And I still have male friends that I regularly meet up with because I just love talking about stuff rather than lots of girly stuff.
Yeah, I'm not. You and I are really similar in that regard. I don't care about fashion. I don't care about makeup. I don't want to talk about children other than my own, to be honest. It sounds really selfish, but that's just the way it is. And we've got a really similar sense of humour, haven't we?
We have, yes. Yeah, we have. We were walking, I won't say what it was, but we were walking around the shop in Cirencester and found a very funny slogan sort of thing. And we were killing ourselves laughing and the woman knew exactly what we were laughing at.
Yeah. And we do bring the tone down if we go somewhere posh, Liz, don't we?
Yes, certainly.
I recall us having afternoon tea at a very posh hotel, laughing and joking, and people looking down their noses at us.
Because it was so quiet. It was like being in a sort of, a London men's club where everything's dark brown and dark brown floors and furniture and you don't breathe almost, and there we were giggling away and, occasionally sort of a newspaper with rustles. You turn the page and that was it.
But let's go back, so sort of business wise, Liz, I'm going to talk to you in a bit about what I've learned from you. What have you learned from me, do you think?
I've learned loads from you. I've learned a lot about understanding that people do want to know about you. And so when people want to hide and not be seen, they can't expect to be noticed. They can't expect to get their stuff out there. And I have a few authors I work with who don't want to have their actual names on their books. And I'm sort of saying to them, so how are you going to market this? If you don't want to be seen, how are you going to get your book out there? If you don't do social media, if you don't spread the word, How are you going to be seen? And they don't have an answer for that.
No.
I think they think it's osmosis. But I mean, I've learnt a lot about PR and marketing and how important things are from you.
Even this week, I've had a conversation with somebody who, in small business, they say, well, it's all about the business. I don't want it to be about me. And really, someone like me, I can't really work with someone who has that mindset.
No.
Because people buy from people.
Yeah, they do.
You know, even if you're selling a widget, if there are 20 widgets like that on the market, how do you choose which person to buy from? You'll choose the personality.
Well, when I was a photographer and starting out, I wanted to, I was photographing weddings and I wanted a company who did wedding albums. And I looked at several and I phoned one company up and the woman on the phone was just so, I don't know, superfluous? No, that's not the right word.
Superior?
Yeah, superior. I was going to
Yeah.
say supercilious, but she was superior. Oh, she was and she was sort of terribly posh, and I just thought, well, no. And then there was another company who were quite new, and they said to me, why don't you come down and visit us? So I went down, even though it was sort of somewhere around the M25. I stayed overnight in a little travel lodge, went to visit them. They were fantastic, and they showed me all the stuff, and I stayed with them for years because they'd made me feel welcome. They always answered questions. They were always very helpful. If I sent something in, I'd forgotten something or not quite done something right, they'd come back to me and said, oh, you've not done this. I had the same with the company I used for my prints. Sometimes I'd sent things in and they'd go, we don't think you meant this. And they were fantastic.
But to have a relationship where someone can say that to you confidently, and because they don't want you to look daft,
No.
that's a relationship that's worth having, isn't it?
It is. And also, I think it's because they knew that I wouldn't be offended because they'd come to know me. And I'm quite difficult to offend, I think. So, yeah, that's important.
So you mentioned you were a photographer, and you were a photographer when we first met, Liz.
Yes.
And we started working together really quickly, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
And we still work together now. So there's been an evolution of our business relationship and our friendship. Tell us how you got into photography.
I used to work in music education. I did for 34 years, and then I'd had enough, and mainly because the arts were being pushed out of the curriculum, which annoyed the hell out of me. And there was nothing I could do about it. And my friend who I worked with at work, who was the science advisor, Tom, he was a sort of a hobby photographer, but he was absolutely brilliant. And he introduced me to digital cameras when they first came out. So I bought his starter one from him when he upgraded, and that went on for quite some time. And funnily enough, as soon as I got a digital camera, I was like, oh, I can see the photo on the back. I was so excited because I'm crap at maths, absolutely crap at maths. And the thought of having to go into a dark room, and I'm also very impatient and wait for stuff, it's like, no. Whereas I could see the picture. And it was just such fun. So I started taking pictures. I then, my friend's daughter was an opera singer, and she'd had some photos done by a professional in London, hated them. And the woman is beautiful. So I said to my friend, well, do you think she'd let me photograph her? She said, yeah. I photographed her. She used the photos. So that gave me some confidence to start doing. And then I started doing little bits here and there while I was still doing my other job. And I said to my husband, what do you think if I resign? Because it was a good income. What do you think if I resign and start up as a photographer? And being the lovely person he is, he said, just do it. He said, if we don't have enough money, we'll move somewhere smaller.
Oh, I love him even more. I love him even more, Conrad, for saying that. But photographs in business is something I talk about a lot. One of the reasons I work with you is that it's imperative in business, isn't it?
Oh.
To have good images.
Totally. I was writing a blog about something and I was looking at, through my LinkedIn contacts, there are still about 4 people on there who are using photos I took. And I stopped doing my photography in 2020.
Yeah.
And it's like, seriously,
Yeah.
Where's your authenticity? Because if you can't even put a picture of yourself as you are, you're lying in all intents and purposes. So what's the point?
Yeah, and if you're selling a service, like you and I are and still are today, when you meet someone for the first time, and they realise that your LinkedIn photo is 20, 10 or
Yeah.
5 years old, or you've put on 3 stone.
I couldn't find one woman. I went to a meeting to meet her, a network meeting. Couldn't see her, and I kept looking around the room, and I was expecting this sort of, I don't know, maybe late 30s, early 40s woman, blonde hair, slim. She turned up, and she was much bigger, much older. She just wasn't the same woman, and I didn't even recognise her. So it's so important, yeah.
And the thing is, what people don't realise is that it sets an air of almost like deceit, and it's instant.
Yeah.
Your brain instantly thinks, oh, that's not quite the person I thought I was dealing with or that I would meet. And that doesn't set a very good tone.
Doesn't, no, totally not.
Tell me from your photography day some of the mistakes people will make with things like their LinkedIn picture, or because you wrote a book about
Yeah,
this.
I did, yeah.
So give us some tips.
Things like, it doesn't happen as much now, people have got more savvy about it, but people would put pictures up where they were like 3 mates together, right, 2 boys and a girl, and the person was called Sam. So was it Sam as in a male Sam, or was it Samantha, and which one of them was the Sam that it was supposed to be? So you'd have that, or you'd have holiday snaps. People wearing big hats, so
Yes.
the light covers their eyes. People wearing sunglasses when they don't need to wear sunglasses. I know some people do because of eyesight problems, but other people just wearing them because they think they look cool. People who don't smile, which I actually find quite intimidating sometimes. Smiling is one of the best things in the world. You know, if you greet somebody with a smile, you're automatically winning. So to meet somebody with a face which is not quite like they might be a serial killer or something.
But some people do that. I'm going to look serious because I'm corporate.
Or I'm cool.
Yeah, I'm going to look serious because I'm a C-suite exec.
Yeah, I know. And it just doesn't work. No.
It's quite off-putting, and I just think that people, if they're unsure about their LinkedIn picture, ask people you trust to give you an honest feedback on whether they think, one, it looks like you now. Is that expression the right expression? Does that say who you are? And take the feedback.
And definitely people you trust. Because I've seen things on Instagram and Threads where people have said, I've had some new pictures done. Which ones do you think are the best? And just everybody out there who are not photographers, they'll go, oh, that one. And they choose the ones that aren't the good ones. They just choose ones, I think, randomly, or the ones that appeal to them.
Yeah.
They're not looking at them with a sort of a professional eye or even a business eye. So, yeah.
I think people are, to some extent, savvier than they were, Liz. But the one thing I get now is people who send in selfies.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's something that's evolved since you and I have been friends, that a selfie will do. And I always say, I know it's a selfie.
Yeah.
I can work it out because the angle of the head and the body isn't quite right.
No. I must admit, when I was doing photography, I did do some courses on how to take good selfies.
Yeah, you did.
Because I think there are times on your social media posts where you want to put up selfies.
Yeah.
But I would always say to them, not for a professional photo or one that you want to give to a journalist for an article or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, the only time that would work for a journalist is, one, if it related to a moment in time that could not be repeated. So I did have a client that went to Glastonbury and met a guy there that she knew was famous. She couldn't quite place who it was. She took a selfie with him and sent it to me and said, I think this is a famous person. It was actually David Beckham. But she knew someone famous, but didn't know who it was. But so in that case you can get away with it. Or if you're doing an article, the article's about selfies or taking selfies. I did once have a professional photographer who I asked for his professional headshot of him, and he sent a selfie.
Okay.
We didn't use it.
No, not surprisingly. And I was also going to say, sometimes when you go to a venue with a friend for work, because we've done this, you take a picture at the venue with it behind you as a selfie saying, we were here. Because as you always used to say, that's the sort of showing the fact that, yes, you are doing what you say you're doing and you are visiting the places you say you're visiting for your business. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem with it if it's like social media stories where it's relevant. You're showing a place or a person that you're with and it's a moment in time and you want to show that you're out and about and engaging. But when you're dealing with the media, that's a whole different thing, and you need professional images. So what made you, Liz, decide that photography you were, because you have always written, and you had written a book about being a photographer and headshot diva.
And I wrote a book for schools when I was working in education. But I didn't think of myself as an author because they were just part of my business and my work, weirdly. So what made me stop being a photographer? I was getting older, basically, and lugging all of equipment around it's heavy. When I was doing weddings, which I absolutely loved doing, I didn't find them overly stressful. I loved them. But that meant that they were taking out weekends, Saturdays, and I made Conrad come with me. He did carry the stuff, and he was very good at getting people together, and old ladies loved taking his arm to sort of help them over the field and things.
I think we should just take a little sideline here and tell people about Conrad, because you and I know him, so we can take it for granted.
That's true. Yeah, well, Conrad is, he's 12 years younger than me. He is Jamaican descent, though born in this country. I think he's very good looking. And I think most of my friends do, because they all say if I pop my clogs, they'll look after him. So I think they're being hopeful. But he's really lovely. And I think often we did some Jamaican weddings, some African weddings, but mostly we did white weddings, as in people. And I think a lot of the elderly ladies quite liked this young man. So it was funny. But yeah, so he did help me at weddings, and it was helpful having him there. But I just got to the point that I was getting tired of lugging the stuff around. Plus, when you take photos and you're holding a camera, you do weird things with your neck and your shoulders. And because then you sit at the computer editing for hours, again, shoulders, I was finding it was affecting my neck quite a lot. So when lockdown came along, I made the decision that I'd been writing. By that time, I'd done the books to do with my businesses, but I'd done an autobiography about Conrad and I because of our differences in age and cultures, supposedly. So I thought, actually, I'm going to focus on the writing. And so I sold most of my equipment. I've still got a main camera and 2 lenses, but I got rid of it all. And then I just started to focus on writing. And then, because I was working with a small publishing company, out of the blue, she asked me if I would mentor some of the people who'd sent them stuff.
And it did happen, I remember, because we talked about it at the time, very organically. Because I was one of these people, and you, because our birthdays at a similar time, we had like 2 or 3 birthdays when we were locked down, and we just had to go for a walk, which is not good for us. But how's it been, making that decision?
I'm loving it. I just feel, I don't know, I love to do things as a creative. It's really bizarre. When I started out in music education, I went to music college. I thought I'd been making music all my life, and it'd be something I'd always been doing. And to be quite honest, I haven't touched my piano since lockdown. I haven't felt the need to. And weirdly, in a way, typing is like playing the piano.
Yeah, I can see that.
I sort of do that, but it's the fact that I'm then still creating. And in a sense, I'm being more creative, because when I played the piano, I played other people's stuff. Because I can't play by ear. I can sight read, which if you're not a musician, you probably won't get, but I can sight read, but I can't play by ear, which used to bug me. Now, when I'm writing, I'm making it all up, and I'm loving the fact now that I feel like an author because it's all coming out of my imagination, and that's what I'm just loving.
The thing I admire about you, Liz, is that I just think you're a lifelong learner. You absorb things from people around you that you trust, and with your books, you really take the marketing of them quite seriously, don't you?
I try to.
Yeah. Because I deal with a lot of authors, and the things I'll get with them is, oh, can you PR my book that came out 2 years ago? Or how do I get people to buy my book? No, I don't want to be on social media. So they put obstacles in the way. And I always say to them, that's fine if you just want a legacy book that you just want your family to read. But if you want to go further afield, you've got to be out there. Yeah. So talk about your just a very basic strategy of how you start talking about your books and how you market them.
I'm not sure if it's a strategy, but what I do. So when I've got a new book coming, I talk about it. I start talking about what I'm doing with it. So I sometimes write blogs about it. So I'm working on a new novel at the moment. Actually, it's going to be a series, so it's the first book in a series. And I've been writing blogs, not all the time, but writing some blogs about how I create the place it's going to be set in. or how I write. I can't just sit down and just go like what they call pantsters, writing by the seat of your pants. I have to plan out a certain amount. But even at that, you just do go off at tangents, but I like to know where I'm going to be ending up. So I write about how I write, things like that. I start talking about it, I share little ideas about it. When I get the book cover, which I get done, I'll start sharing that. I always have a book launch and I know a lot of people who don't, which I find weird, or perhaps I'm just a show-off, but I love talking to people. So I always have a book launch because I know that I'm going to get in front of a group of people and they have the opportunity to buy the book. So I'm helping myself by that. Again, I advertise it, so they see that. I do posts on Instagram, I write on Substack, and in Substack I write a poem, which is not to do with my actual books, but I write poetry every Tuesday and Thursday. I write a blog every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, and then I send out a newsletter. So I'm doing all sorts of different things that are keeping me out there in people's eye, sort of thing.
How do you deal with snobbery around a self-published book and a book that's published by a bigger or an independent public? Because that is a thing, isn't it?
Oh, totally. I think, though, I don't know if some people are still going to be snobbish about it, but there are so many people. I mean, there are millions of books published, and there are so many people who are self-publishing now. It's become much more normal, because as much as people hate Amazon, without Amazon, we wouldn't be able to do it. They've made it much easier for self-publishing people to do that. There are also lots of small publishing groups out there that help people as well. But the snobbery shouldn't be there, really, because even if you're with a big known publisher, they don't do your marketing for you these days, unless you are raking in millions for them and you're a very, 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 very bestseller sort of thing. So it's you have to do your marketing even then. The other thing to think about is that when you're being with a big publisher, they take a cut of your books, and if your books are on Amazon as well, Amazon take a cut, and if you had an agent that linked you up with the publisher, they take a cut. So you've got to be selling a heck of a lot of books to be making a good income. So it is just a snobbery of I'm published by sort of thing, rather than, if you want to publish a book, publish it, get it out there in any way that you can.
I agree. I talk a lot. My book was self-published, though I'm using a sort of a little publishing house to help me so that it looks professional, so there's an investment for me, and then my second book will be the same, as you know. But I think for me, it's about what is the goal of the book.
Yeah.
For me, the goal of the book is it's an extra marketing tool that promotes me in my area of expertise, and it gives me an asset because I give a ton of talks that I can sell at that event for very low cost.
Yeah.
Which I've never had before.
No, and I think that's one of the good things about business books. If you've got something, a business book, or even a memoir about an incredible thing that you did or happened to you, then you can do talks on the back of those books, and you've got an audience who will buy them, or you can always cost it into the cost of the talk. So, there you've got great outlets for those sorts of books. With fiction, it's a bit harder because there's so many books out there. But for me, I want to get my books out there. I can't not write them. I do want to have books there that hopefully when I do, fall off this mortal coil, somebody might find the book and go, oh, I wonder who Lis McDermott was. Here's a book, Because I haven't got children, they are my legacy.
I also, some years ago, I worked with a very successful novelist on a project, and she was published, had a publishing deal. I think it was 2 books a year at that time. And I remember she employed me to teach her how to use Twitter. And I remember saying to her, why are you paying me to do that? You're already really successful, earning a ton of money, nice house, all the sort of material trappings. And she said to me something very similar that you've said to me that made me think, oh, I'm foolish to have even thought about it. She said, because one, the publisher didn't do much marketing. They did do a book tour in the UK and in other countries where she was popular, not in countries where she wasn't.
No.
And also, they did a generic Facebook page, and that was it. They didn't do anything else. So if she wanted to be anywhere else at the time on Twitter, she had to do it herself, and she had to learn. And even though she had material success, she still wanted new people to find her books.
Yeah.
She was as motivated as you are, even though on paper she was probably one of the top 10 novelists in the UK at that time.
And I met her because do you remember I went?
Yes,
because
you
you
did.
gave me your ticket.
That's
and
right.
I actually ended up taking pictures because her marketing PR people from the publishing company hadn't arranged a photographer. They'd arranged lots of other stuff. You know, they'd got drinks for guests as they arrived. They'd got the talk set up and everything else, and they got Waterstones there, which was fantastic. But they hadn't arranged a photographer.
And that's just a really basic thing. But I think there's a lot of snobbery around, which I think will gradually be changed. But interestingly, I've just done an exercise on Wikipedia. Wikipedia does not recognise any self-published books at all. They want third-party validation. So for someone like me, if I'm doing a Wikipedia page or trying to do one for a client, I have to have an awkward conversation where I say to them, including to myself, I'm sorry, we can't use your books because they're not a third-party publisher.
No. I actually don't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Wikipedia or Wikipedia, and some of the stuff that's on Wikipedia is, I take with a pinch of salt because you don't know how actually correct it is. I can't think of the right word.
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons they want that third-party validation, I guess. But anyway, moving on. Let's cover, I mean, are you a multi-millionaire, Liz?
No. I make very little for my books, I really don't. I don't even make back what I've spent to get them out there, to be honest. You can always hope. I've got a friend that's interested in writing a screenplay on them, but, you know, that may never happen either because he needs backing from other things, and so, but I just enjoy writing.
So I know people are going to be thinking, watching or listening, are going to be thinking, well, Liz, how do you live then? How do you make money? So if you want to share a little bit about that, do.
Well, I'm pensionable age because I'm 73 the weekend after next. I earn some money from Fiona because I write some blogs for you.
You do?
I write some podcast notes for you. And that's basic. Oh, and then obviously I do charge on their mentoring, especially when I'm editing, when I go through editing. So that's how I earn some extra money.
Yeah. And you get a pension?
Yeah, I get a pension, yeah.
Which, you know...
I don't get a huge pension, I will add, because my job, this is where I was stupid. When I was younger, I loved my job, but it was not a full-time job. The post, the county didn't think the subject was good enough or whatever to pay for a full-time advisor. So I was an advisor just for half the week. So my pension is a half salary of, pension, which is a bit annoying sometimes.
But you make it work, don't you?
Yes, you do make it work, yeah, because you don't need a lot. There's only two of us. We don't have to look after children or support anybody else. So, yeah, and we're not particularly bothered about stuff.
No, in fact, you and I are really good at buying silly tat,
yes.
aren't we? Okay, let's roll forward into 2025. What's going to be happening with your books in 2025, Liz?
Well, I am definitely going to be publishing the first book of the series, which is called the Beaconsbury Forest series. And the first book's going to be Honey.
Give us a bit of a rundown then. What can you say without revealing too much?
Yeah, it's quite hard actually because I'm sort of... my other books have had some suspense and thriller aspect of them, and this one doesn't really. There is a suspenseful thing that goes over all three books, but that's in the background. So they are quite different, these. It's basically a family story, and so Honey is born in the forest, and this forest is based very, very loosely on the Forest of Dean, where I used to live. And Honey's born in the forest in 1954. And even in 1954, my forest is sort of quite insular, so they don't go out that far outside the forest. And Honey doesn't love the forest. She finds it quite confining. She's a bit scared of it, really. Her dad loves it, and he's a charcoal burner. most people these days don't know what charcoal burners are.
No. No, I don't know what a charcoal burner is.
I actually saw one when I was young. So like an elusive.
Oh no, that's a charcoal burner.
They used, in the past, when they used to do the forestry sort of husbandry type stuff, they cut down trees and then they'd leave stuff that they didn't want. Some was taken away for use and they'd leave some, and that was made into charcoal. And what they would do, they stack the wood. It's covered over, I think, by... I'm not sure if it's about tree bark, but it's covered over, and they set fire to it inside this covering, and it burns slowly, and it turns to charcoal, which used to be used to burn in fires and in businesses. So in the olden days, not the
1950s?
Yeah. When I was born, yeah, the olden days. No, but at that time and way before then, that's what charcoal had been used from, like, 1200s and stuff. But they used it for burning and for fueling things. And gradually, it became automated, and there was proper sort of factories that did it. But you still have the odd ones. So her father in the book is a charcoal burner. He's from a wealthy family, and they were really annoyed that he chose to do that. But he loves the forest, and he adores the forest. So she and her father have this sort of mismatch in that he loves it, she hates it. So the first book is all of her life, but it's also about her and her bestie called Michelle, and they are so different. So there's a lot of differences that are sort of playing against each other, and they grow up and things happen, and there's an affair that happens, and then she gets married. Well, no, she's married, she has the affair, obviously. And then there's her child, and her child is Finn, and they have a boy called Sean. But then Finn, in the next book, she's the title of the second book, and it's all about Finn. But there's still things that come in from the first book. And in the first book, there is a body found. So through the books, we begin to realise there's something going on. There's a killer in the background. So it's not a thriller, but it is. I'd say it's a sort of contemporary women's fiction.
Because there is this push, isn't there, to say what type of genre your book is, which I know you don't like. No. You just, a story arrives for you and you create it in your head without thinking about it belongs to this or that genre.
I know, and that is a problem when it comes to marketing, because marketeers totally want to know what genre your book is. And I get that. And actually people do tend to read specific genres. I don't, and I don't think you do you?
No, not really.
I read a whole range of stuff. So I do find that hard. But I think the nearest I pay for an editor to edit my books, and I've spoken to her about it, and I've shared my first chapter to see I'm doing it, so it's going okay, because I'm writing in first person, which I haven't done for a whole book before. And I wanted her to see if it was working, and she's talked to me a bit, and we've talked about the genre, and she's suggested it's going to be women's contemporary.
That sounds posh.
It does, but it's
women's
difficult.
Contemporary.
Women's contemporary, yeah, but there's loads of them, so it's going to have other things in there to sort of, because when you put them up on Amazon, you've probably noticed with yours, there's like little categories.
Yes.
And so you can have like women's contemporary grief might be one, or I don't know, romance, or stalking.
I guess they're like meta tags, aren't they? Or search tags. Yeah. Cool.
So you can put those in. So you can get there's other things in there.
Yeah.
But it is hard. I find that the hardest thing, actually, because I just want to tell my story.
Yeah. And then on to the next one.
Yeah. And I get really invested in my characters. I wake up thinking about them.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can actually believe that. I mean, I woke up last week with my book and thought, right, there's a chapter I need to do.
Yeah.
And I told you this, I just wrote it.
Yeah.
Because it was just there.
That's good.
And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to write this. Anyway, Liz, we could natter on all day, as we often do. We had better stop. So how can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, where I'm Lis McDermott. I think I'm just Lis McDermott. I might be Lis McDermott author, but I also have a website which is Lis McDermott author, and Liz is spelt with an S, not a Z.
Don't forget the S, folks.
Yeah, S. And McDermott is a muck, not a Mac.
Yes. That's big M, small c, big D.
Yeah.
That's for Dermot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Liz, thank you very much. We'll catch up again soon. Probably this week,
Probably,
frankly.
yes, probably. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for taking part. That's it for today. Really hope you've enjoyed my chat with my bestie Liz. Do go off and find her. If you want to find out more about me, visit scottmedia.uk, or you can hop onto Facebook and join Fiona Scott's PR tribe. If you just mention this episode, then I will let you in. It's a free group. Or you can find me on LinkedIn or all the other usual places. Until next time.